you got it. They'll just.
It's okay.
Okay, we're good to go. Took a few moments there with network connections. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight to the May meeting of City on Rising. Those of you who don't know me, my name is John Doyle. Thanks for being with us. We had some printer stuff and some network connections, but now we're online. I want to thank everyone for coming out and trying to build community with us. We have a lot to get to here. So we have a guest presenter tonight, so everybody should have gotten a copy of the presentation. It's a few pages long. And if you don't have one, you should be able to look on with the person next to you. So everyone be friendly. And we'll be sure to get that going. Before we begin, we're also going to have a few other people come up and present, but we'll start with our guest presenter right now, who is from Open Plans, New York. And the reason we decided to do this presentation is because there's been a lot of talk about daylighting possible corners. On the island, we've done a few. 90% of them have been non-controversial. There was one right out here that's a little controversial. But this one was actually done, even though we didn't ask for it, we asked for the other side, but when they came out, they don't come wearing blinders. When they realize there are problems, they come out and they daylight the whole corner. And there have been issues where fire trucks have been able to get on this side of Hawkins Street. So I understand it's an inconvenience for some, but that's why they daylit this corner. And that's kind of where we are. And I know there are some in some of the local and the business community.
Just explain very quickly what daylighting is.
Sure, daylighting is when you kind of clear a corner so that people can, emergency vehicles can get through. It also opens up visibility, and I appreciate that. I'm not going to go into it too much longer because there's a whole person here with a presentation, so I don't want to steal anybody's thunder here. But we want to have someone here who's an expert on this, explain what's going on. Also important, while I know, unfortunately, some things like stoplights and stop signs and speed humps and all those things are a little controversial on City On. Come on in, guys. We have some spots over here. You're all welcome. Come on in. I understand it's a little bit controversial in some parts. Just please keep in mind that, we're one neighborhood in a city of 8.5 million people. And there are some ways that the city is moving that we just need to be aware of what's going on. And this daylighting is one of those things. So without further ado, no worries. Without further ado, we're going to make sure, I know they're setting up some seats for everybody. So Emily was nice enough to reach out to us. She's with a group called the Open Plans Association. Open Plans New York, right? Not to be confused with Open New York, that's a separate group. But she offered to come here to explain what's going on with daylighting and things they're trying to do at a city level. So I thought, who better to come out and kind of explain it, but then an expert on the topic. So Emily, if you want to come up here. And she brought a PowerPoint, but I wasn't sure if we would have the tech stuff here, which is my bad, but everybody should be able to share this. It's the PowerPoint presentation. So share it with a neighbor. If you don't have it, I know a bunch of people just walked in. I will give you a copy. I printed out 15 and thought we could share two by two. So if you're next to somebody and you can share it, please do. If you need a copy, just raise your hands. Yes, okay. I will give you guys my copy. And without further ado, Emily, take it away. Thank you. Let's give her a round of applause for coming here.
Hi, everybody. My name is Emily Chingay. I'm the community organizer at Open Plans. We're a nonprofit here in the city. We advocate for safer streets, joyful public spaces, aiming for a climate-resilient New York City now that our weather is getting extreme, and designing our streets in our city so that they can support this weather that comes. So I have this slide deck here that I'm just going to use, but if at any point you have any questions, just let me know. Going to start off with this fact, and that is that Hoboken, New Jersey, across the river, they have not had a traffic fatality in 7 years. This has been with the help of daylighting and many safe street elements that they added in efforts to achieve Mission Zero. And I would say that that's been very successful. So really looking forward to talking about daylighting here specifically in New York City and City Island. So a couple examples around the city. This one's in Bronx Community Ward 5. Daylighting, they're often curb extensions. You might have seen them around City Island. It's basically the curb right by the crosswalk. It gets extended so that pedestrians that are standing there, they can have more visibility, but also for the drivers that are approaching the intersection. Whether you're a driver, pedestrian, I know we've all experienced chaos at the intersection. I certainly have. And so this is a really great solution for everybody on the streets to make sure that they're getting to their daily commutes, they're getting to everywhere they need to go in a safe way. So we'll go over some more benefits, the New York State and city law, and then a little bit more into why we should have daylighting here in the city. So daylighting is a street design intervention where they remove the spots that are right by a crosswalk. This often it can be a concrete curb extension. You might have seen in denser parts of the city, like a bike trail, city bike dock. This example I think is really great. It's a rain garden, and when we're getting extreme weather, flood mitigation, we need those permeable spaces that will absorb the water. One of the greatest solutions is a rain garden at an intersection. So New York State law currently does require all intersections to be daylit, state law. However, many years, this is a really great opportunity to work with your neighbors to identify what you think are the most dangerous or ones that could definitely benefit from daylighting.
I have a question about the rain gardens.
Yes, absolutely.
Do the citizens have a choice about, can you say open on a rain garden?
Oh, absolutely. So if you don't ask for anything specific, they'll probably just do something concrete. But we would love to beautify our streets as well. So a rain garden request would be greatly appreciated, I'm sure. So we know that over half the crashes here in the city occur at intersections. There's many conflict points there. But it also, daylighting increases that visibility. So it helps with those conflict points. It shortens the crosswalk for folks that might have just gotten to the light and don't want to run. It protects ADA accessibility for most vulnerable road users, making sure that they can get to the other side of the street on time. Reduces crowding in some of our busier streets on hot summer days when everyone's out and about. It definitely helps with that congestion. And then again, it provides that space for public amenities, green gardens, bike trails, whatever you think is best for the neighborhood. So this graphic, I think, is a bit exaggerated. It's what it would look like with all 4 intersections. That doesn't have to be the case for every neighborhood, for every street. It's totally different. It could be 1, it could be 2, depending on the density. But this, I think, does a great job at showing just from one driver how much they benefit by having this daylighting in place. Some local statistics. In the last year alone, Community Ward 10 in the Bronx has had over 300 total crashes, 2 deaths in the community due to traffic violence, and over 500 injuries. And if we want to go back to the Hoboken statistics in the last 7 years, CB10 has had over 2,800 crashes, 26 fatalities, and over 3,900 injuries in the community ward. And folks, CB10 does not have the same population as Hoboken, but if we're thinking about the lives that could have been saved, the lives that could have been protected by having just a couple intersections daylit, I think it makes a big difference and impact in the neighborhood. So some more examples. This is Queens Community Ward 1 in Astoria. This intersection was daylit last year after the death of a student who was walking home from school. And the community really rallied together. They came together and they identified intersections that they deemed to be the most dangerous, the ones that needed the daylighting immediately. And they also came up with, they also had community organizations supporting, elected officials. So it was a tragic moment, but it was great that the community really stepped up and showed support for fixing the problems. Some more examples. This is Jackson Heights in Queens on 34th Avenue. This is a painted extension that's not concrete, but it is an example of a short-term extension that also is great for fire trucks, for example, and especially narrow roads that might not be the best for concrete. A painted extension is a good solution there. So some more short-term examples include textured paint, the flex posts, the planters, granite blocks. The granite blocks and planters are in place to physically protect that space. The flex posts are also there too, but we always suggest and recommend for the bigger, wider streets that need it, we recommend the long-term daylighting. That would include a concrete extension, a metal post, a rain garden, a bike corral even, trash containerization if there's enough space on that intersection, on that extension. So there's a lot of great long-term ways to implement daylighting, but understandably there are intersections that would benefit more from the short term. So to date, 14 community boards across the city have passed resolutions supporting daylighting here in the city. The first one was Community Board 1 in Astoria after the fatality in the neighborhood. And since then, there have been many more that are discussing this at their transportation committee meetings. Some more are in progress. The 14 that have passed represent over 2.15 million New Yorkers. And then we've had over 20 elected officials sign on and over 50 community organizations across the city sign letters of support for universal daylighting. So this is a really big, I think, moment in time in the city. It's a great way, it's great to see that community boards, organizations, elected officials are all rallying together to support daylighting. It is...
Are you okay? Oh yeah, no worries. As long as you're okay. That's the most important thing. Safety first.
So this is a really great moment in time. Drivers, pedestrians, cyclists, everybody on the road right now everyone's agreeing that this is something that they need, this is something that benefits them and their community. So I really want to encourage you all to consider supporting universal daylighting here in the city. I saw in the past that you have supported daylighting here, so it would be really great to continue to build this momentum in the city, a letter of support for the Department of Transportation or anything like that. So thank you all again. I'm going to open it up to questions, and happy to go back to any slides if folks want to take a better look.
And for those watching online, we're going to upload onto our webpage the presentation. We'll PDF it, we'll put it on our webpage. It'll be up probably tomorrow or over the weekend. So if you're watching online, you'll get a chance to review it, and you can send comments to cityonrising@gmail.com. And we will make sure to send them to Emily, and you can answer questions both virtually and in the room. But for the people who are here with us today, does anyone have a question about the daylighting that has been going on thus far? Yes, Patrick.
Hello, thank you for your presentation. So you've given us all of the wonderful benefits. Can you tell us what some people may perceive as the disadvantages other than losing parking? So that's not the one I'm talking about. Is there anything else that could work against it?
That's really the only thing that's come up. So, and even then, the drivers and the ones that often do care about parking have even come to the agreement that this is something that would benefit them as well. But yes, just that one I think.
Well, plus you can get a huge ticket as well. Going in that space.
And the other issue, which I know is a little bit of a double-edged sword here, but I bring this up at the precinct council meetings, is enforcement. Because we do have a lot of signs up here, but people don't respect them, they don't follow them, and then it is a back and forth to get them followed. So I think if something does pass at the city level, there really needs to be some mechanism for oversight, because it depends on if it's being followed.
Absolutely, that enforcement, especially on those painted spots, is super important, which is why we often like to recommend the long-term examples. They're physically protected, however, for the more narrow intersections.
Yeah. And just so everybody knows, I did. Everyone here is familiar with the long-standing issues with Pilot Street, where I know some of our members here live. Pilot Street, for many years, they've been trying to get a stoplight there. It's been put in 6 or 7 times. I actually foiled the request, and I found that I put in one of the first requests like 10 years ago when I worked for Senator Klein. and every time you gotta hit for a stoplight 500 cars on the major street and 100 cars on the minor street. And unless you're measuring on a summer weekend evening, that street does not get per hour. Doesn't get 500 cars unless it's summer weekend evening on the major street, and even on a weekend evening in the summer, there are not 100 cars coming down Pilot Street, and that's continuously why it's denied. And then I know a few years ago when we got the light on Cross Street, some people were like, well, even the people who supported it on Cross Street said, I don't understand how Cross Street got it and Pilot Street didn't. And the thing was that on Cross Street, there are 100 cars that cross onto Bound Street. I'm sorry, Bound Street, rather, not Cross Street. Bound Street, where Seafood City is. Why isn't there? Well, there are 100 cars that go down Bound Street every hour. And there's also a requirement there needs to be 5 preventable accidents in a given year. Over a 10-year period on Pilot Street, when they examined this, there were 3 accidents. Over a 10-year period on Bound Street, 21 preventable accidents. That's why Bound Street got it, that's why Pilot Street didn't. I bring it up in the context of, kind of similar to what Emily's been saying, we keep putting in for stoplights, and it's not just us, there are other groups in the neighborhood who are putting it in as well. I'm not saying it's just us, but there's a concerted effort. We also asked them to consider possibly for that corner, because there are senior citizens who live in Pilot Cove, you have the catering hall, you have the home for special needs individuals, you have the parking lot across from the catering hall. We did ask them to consider, at least by the church side there, some sort of possible sidewalk build-out. So that way, if they can't do the light, at least we can make it safer for some folks to cross the intersection. Because as Emily said, if they narrow the intersection, at least just on Pilot Street, that might be enough to, 1, cause people to slow down, and 2, make it a little clearer at that intersection. So even though there have only been 3 preventable accidents, I know even the people, and I know sometimes this neighborhood gets polarized, but I am confident even people who sometimes are opposing these things do not want anyone to be struck or killed. I think that's something we all share. And the reason that we're going to bring people like Emily out here and to educate everybody is that it's important that I understand these things can sometimes be inconvenient, but if we save the life of one person, resident, visitor, whatever, does not matter. One life, it's all worth it. And I just ask sometimes, we get heated, we get in arguments on things, and sometimes, and I'm speaking for myself as well, we get nearsighted, not farsighted. And, this parking spot, I can't believe this, I've got to go around the block, this stinks. Okay, but if that increased visibility makes it safer for everyone, that is the greater good. And all of us together here, we have to be committed to the greater good. No matter who you are, how you vote, it does not matter. The greater good is served by making sure that people's public safety is protected. And this is a neighborhood we talk a lot about public safety, but public safety takes many forms, right? It's about how safe we are on the streets. That's why we got the speed camera. That's why we're trying to get red light cameras and do all that other stuff. It also means, when we have, people sometimes complain about the youngsters on the avenue, but are we offering them anything to do? Right. And if we're not, then it's incumbent on all of us, even those of us who do not have kids, to make sure that there are accessible points for those children to be able to be in safe spaces if one may not exist at home, and to make sure that there is something for them to do on weekend evenings if they cannot go home. And those are the things public safety means a lot of things, and we have to think about all those different things when we're talking about public safety. So Emily, I want to thank you for coming out here. Beverly, did anyone else?
What about education? I for one had no idea why there was no parking in this corner. I had no idea up until today.
Yeah.
Wow. So how do you let people know about?
Great question. So we do a lot on our social media accounts, and we do, we try to get outside media to cover it. Usually that's News 12 of the Bronx Times. We do try with the Island Current. Unfortunately, Island Current is a volunteer-led newspaper, so if we have the time to write it, they'll put it in. But sometimes, we don't always have the time to write it, and we do utilize professional sources to do that. So we will try to do a little bit more with our social media. And Beverly, I'm sorry, you wanted to go.
Yeah, no, I just thank you for this presentation, because as a driver, I appreciate the daylighting, because, with the speed that people come up and down the avenue sometimes, even creeping out of my street, it's taking life in your hands. I had no idea about the pedestrian deaths, and that is just absolutely heartbreaking and so important, I think. And some of it's got to be neighbor to neighbor, right? Like when you hear people complaining about losing a parking spot, making it clear that the reason that these started is because pedestrians were getting struck at corners, and that's what this is for, to make this a safer environment for everybody that is either driving or walking or taking public transportation or biking or what have you. So I really appreciate your presentation, and
Andrea, Dan, and you as well.
I was thinking exactly what she was thinking. I don't worry about myself as a pedestrian in terms of this. I had no idea there were those deaths, and that's really important. But there are streets on City Island Avenue that I will never come to I go back a block to get to the island on a place on 4th Street where there's a light. Because otherwise, I'm out in the middle of the street before I see traffic coming. And it's a super problem. There are a whole bunch of streets on City Island that are just incredibly nerve-wracking, the cyclists to come out to the island.
And people turning in at the same time.
So the only other comment I have about that is that if you're going to have planners, you've got to keep them low so that they don't block the vision of drivers like me
Good point.
who are trying to get out.
Yes.
All right, Dan, and then Ginny.
Safety is obviously most important. Probably third important. We can put something in the middle, it doesn't matter. Capitalism wise, if you have a store and there is nobody parked in front of your store, you're going to make more money because people can see what you do and they are more likely to stop. And anyone who says that they're losing a parking spot doesn't understand the greater way it works, because there's more of a turnover and more people can see it if there's nobody parked there. Generally what happens is a car of somebody who lives in a building on the avenue, which is not a problem, parks their car there and it sits there all day. So if you don't have a car there, more people are likely to let someone out there or pick someone up there or just see you to get out of their car and shop your space. From experience, that's all I want to say. So.
Ginny?
Well, because I'm spoiled. I have no parking for a lot of space, and it's very helpful to me.
I love that.
Yeah,
It's just-
I was reflecting, it was kind of ironic, because we were on Pilot Street. I had an accident at that intersection, and there was a limo that was parked in the bus zone. And the bus zone parking is getting out of hand now. The U-turns from people visiting the island is very dangerous. I was almost hit the other day by someone last minute making a U-turn. So that's just a complaint, I guess, but I just was thinking
Important,
about the bus stops are an issue too, which I don't know why they're not saying anything about it either, just the bus.
No, it's another
bus
point of
drivers,
enforcement. I'll mention that at the precinct council meetings. And just so you all know, you can all email the 45th precinct and the commanding officer and the community affairs officers. It's Hannah, HANNAH.Rivera, as it's commonly spelled, at nypd.org. She's our community affairs officer. She's very friendly, very nice person. And if you have a concern like that, I will pass it along. We can definitely get that going. It's important because sometimes I go to meetings and people are like, oh, John, but if everyone brings the same complaints, but they're kind of putting them through me, it's better to hear if the police and other public servants hear this through your own words and your own voices. It's more authentic communication. So I just ask, if you have a concern, please use that email, because if it's more of us complaining and voicing our concerns, maybe not complaining, then the more likely we're going to be to get noticed. Barbara and then Beverly.
Yeah, I just want to say, I was one of those people complaining about losing parking space. And this has been a presentation that has enlightened my understanding of things. So thank you very much.
Absolutely.
I just want to ask you to repeat the email.
Sure. Hannah, with an H on the end, .Rivera at nypd.org. And Beverly, go right ahead.
At one point, MTA was thinking about installing cameras on the front of buses that would just grab the license plates of anybody parked in a bus zone to send a ticket. I don't know whatever happened with that. The last I heard about that was several years ago, so do you know something about that?
Yeah, so they did pilot that on a couple bus routes, but I think that what might be the issue is that it's exclusively for bus lanes, street, get on the bus. It's really unsafe, but really great.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just think the cars aren't people too. I mean, that's
Really?
be one of our slogans, cars are not people.
These are some great comments.
And one other thing is to complain about parking on City Island is stupid. I mean, really, you know.
I mean, we're lucky that a lot of people do walk places around here, and I'm sensitive to the people who can't walk.
Thank you.
But at the same time, I bring this up, and I thought this was important because a few months ago something ran in the Current that was very negative about this, and that they were going to start a petition to remove the daylighting we had. And I wanted to bring this to kind of widen the context and the conversation that not only are these not going to be removed, but the city's going in completely in the other direction. And I think it's important that we all just keep in mind public safety is so important, and that pedestrian safety in our neighborhood is very important, because I know everybody in this room, maybe to varying degrees of familiarity, but I see you all when I'm out walking the streets or out in the shops and everything, and I know how many of you walk, and I know that's common in the island. And you know, when as we talked about earlier, when people no parking spaces, that when you're instantly just presented with that narrow context, that sounds terrible.
I mean, compared to Brooklyn.
Yes,
You know, we
but-
have to move your car and sit
Yeah.
there for 2
when
hours.
you're hit with, that sounds terrible, but just understand this wasn't done for some sort of arbitrary reason, and that an expert from the Department of Transportation studies the intersection to make that determination. It's not done because so-and-so asked for it, or so-and-so was used, or this, that, or the other thing. That's stupid. It's done because the traffic planning experts have looked at an intersection and recognized there's a dangerous post there. So just please keep that in mind. And I'm sorry, because I know I've spoken to a few business owners who are not pleased. Sometimes when a spot gets taken away, I do try to be cognizant of that when we do put in these requests. But there are competing interests here, and sometimes certain interests outweigh other interests, and it's just the way it is. But it's not done to be spiteful or anything else. It's done at certain intersections to protect safety. And even though they can take the spot right out in front of here, I use this just as the example because it's the most controversial one. The real reason we asked is because people were having a tough time getting off Hawkins Street. Why the park? And I know you live there, but there were other people who complained as well. And we only put in a request if it's someone who lives in that area and it's viewed as being legitimate. Okay? In terms of that, they live in the area, there is a safety concern, that's why we put it in. So I just want everyone to know that this is not done in an arbitrary manner. And this is going to be online. We're going to be fortunate enough to put Emily's presentation online on the webpage. So, when you hear opposing points of view, we don't want to tell, and I speak, I think, for our whole board here when I do this, we're not telling anyone what to think. We're presenting all forms of an argument, and that falls on each of us to decide what you each individually want to do. And since the other side is well represented, we will invite them to come as well. But I really appreciate Emily coming here, and Emily having the stats and the arguments and really the figures of traffic fatalities or traffic injuries, because that's what we want to avoid here. We don't want that happening here. And I know all of you, one of the most frequent complaints we get is that City on Avenue turns into the Daytona 500 sometimes late at night. And we're trying to address that. We're going to try harder. But having good context and having people like Emily who are advocates come out here does help keep City Island in the conversation. So let's give her a go ahead.
Just one more weird thing. You may not be aware, but some cities have laws that you can't park within 10 feet of the corner.
It's New York State law that you can't park within 20 feet, around 20 feet, but many, many years ago there was a loophole.
Yes.
Then it's because they have over 1 million, the only place in all of New York that has that. There it is.
That's good. All right, let's give Emily a round of applause. Okay.
Real quick, sorry.
No.
So my email is emily@openplans.org. I'll share it. You have my email.
We'll put it
Please
on
feel free to reach out to me with any sort of concerns on the street, the public realm as a whole. I would love to chat. This is a beautiful, beautiful place, and I cannot wait to come back. But I sent you some resolution language. I'll also send you a template. But I would love for you all to consider. Please to take a look at the letter, and would love for you all to consider a letter of support.
Absolutely. There's an email sign-up sheet going on, or sign-in sheet. So put your emails on there. We'll email out to the larger group. But the goal is to do some sort of an action. So absolutely.
Thank you
So
much.
thank you all, and thank you, Emily.
Thank you all.
Okay. so we're going to go through community updates. Our first update is the coastal cleanup bee plan between us and the Waterfront Alliance. And the person to present that is David, who just walked in. So David, good timing, and take it away.
Yeah, no, so the Waterfront Alliance had reached out to us, and they said they had gotten some grant money, and were looking to do some sort of cleanup for the area. So it just so happened to be at the same time, and that my son here is also part of the Boy Scout troop who's working on his Eagle Scout project now. So part of the project we were talking about was going to do some of that coastal cleanup, because we walked the dog down that pathway along the shoreline of Eastchester Bay, and it's heartbreaking in some areas, just the amount of garbage that's there, right? So that we were talking about it, and it just so happened that that's how the universe works, right? We all know that put the Waterfront Alliance and us together. So we're going to do it on June 22nd. It's going to be from 9 to 11. Right? And we're working on getting some permits. We're also trying to connect with the park rangers so we can hopefully get some canoes. So what we'd like to do is, since this is just so much garbage, right? So we're going to try and bag it down at the shore, and then have the canoes come by and pick it up, and then bring it down to sort of that launch area down towards the bridge, and we can get it out there easier. So there's a whole bunch of stuff going on, and we're going to go down some of the other trails and try to clean up, but that's going to be on, again, June 22nd between 9 and 11.
And where, David?
The meeting point, we're not sure yet what we're going to do, but it's going to be the path that goes along the Eastchester Bay shore from down by the bridge, and as you're coming up towards the circle.
Yes.
So there's like a whole little path there.
Right near the Pelham Bay Bridge. Which is fitting because David has been drawing attention to this for months. So the minute that the Waterfront Alliance was like coastal cleanup, he jumped on it, and he's going to be spearheading.
My son and I have been going and making sort of like a photo journal, by taking all the pictures of the garbage and stuff like that. So looking forward to it because it is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Sure.
It is heartbreaking.
But, the super high tides we've been having on Hunter, what has washed up out of the sound is absolutely horrendous.
So part of what we're going to be doing that day is actually documenting how much we do collect, so we can have an idea about what is washing up and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, are you going to walk around Hunter too?
Yep.
If anyone has any questions, you can email cityonrising@gmail.com or email Dave directly, and we will clue you in. But the goal is to have a big team out there, and to really to push that forward. So if you guys can all be a part of that, we're going to be reaching out to the Scouts and the other island-based groups, Hutchinson River, Oyster Project, everybody.
Yeah, do you want to partner up?
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's stay in touch, because we would definitely partner up.
Yeah, absolutely. This literally, we just had the call on this on that Monday, so this is all fast moving. But since there's grant monies available, if we can do good things, let's all try to work together, of course. I'm going to be passing around an email. This is going to be in the local papers. It's an update on Rodman's Neck. Basically, TDLR, too long didn't read, or TLDR rather, is that they've moved the project to a construction management build. What does that mean? It has a few important concepts when you do that. First, they can choose the vendor to redo the shooting range at Rodman's Neck based on the quality of the person doing it, not the lowest bid.
Great.
And that's really important because any of us who drive on Pelham Parkway will notice they chose someone based on the lowest bid, and now they resurfaced the Pelham Parkway, and they're not quite as bad as we have it here, but it's pretty bad. So this is going to be good in that regard, and the other good thing about it is it's going to allow them to continue to operate the range while they're reconstructing the range. So that will shorten response times. I'm going to get to you in a second here. It's going to shorten the response times in terms of building it. Some other things about this, and again, I'm going to be passing this around. This has been approved for dissemination. We're going to be going, basically, there were seven shooting ranges at Rodman's Neck right now. 2 are going to be, well, you probably, you hear it sometimes. 2 are going to be totally eliminated based on the reconstruction. 4 of the 5 remaining are going to be moved indoors.
Yay.
That's supposed to bring it down from 72 decibels to somewhere between 0 and 5 decibels for the indoor ranges. There will be one range they're still saying will be outside. That range is for a long action rifle. You know, when you hear the big, we're trying to figure out, I have information from DDC, we're going through the NYPD to find out, is that range going to be baffled? What sort of sound baffling is going to take place there? Also important, there is no scheduled change right now for the bomb detonation, which I know bothers a lot of people. That's why we've been working with our state legislators to advance legislation, to take a more holistic form, rein it all in, force the bomb shelter to be somehow enclosed, which they can do. They do it in other places, in other parts of the world. And also, very important, to do a health study, an environmental study that will be released to the public, so there is peace of mind, because we keep getting told verbally, there's no environmental concern here, and you don't believe it, I don't believe it, but that's the point here. So I'm going to pass this around, and we're going to take questions. Nancy, you will get the first question. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Nancy.
My question,
Good.
this indoor enclosed range, which I believe should be moved outside of Rodman's Neck, which is a flood zone, will require infrastructure, underground, sewers, water, cabling, electricity. I want to know before it gets approved, how many trees will be sacrificed? Because the Parks Department gets a lot of money for every mature tree that comes down to plant new ones. I've seen them take down today, chainsaw, a new one that just died. With the change in climate, they are not thriving and we don't have space. So it's padding the budget of the Parks Department, and it is killing our environment, accelerating climate change. We live in a flood zone. As the polar ice caps melt, we're going under. So I want to know the number of trees that will be sacrificed before we say okay. Thinking about the fact the firing range is not only used for NYPD, many of whom live in Westchester and Rockland. It's also used for military training. And these people have to drive through seawater every time we have a flood tide. So maybe even for the people who use it, it's not an optimal place to build it.
You're correct.
And the lead poisoning that's already out there, we do not need more. How can we stop it from happening?
I appreciate what you're saying. This is, I draw parallels in this to the bridge fight we had many years ago. Remember, there were a lot of people like, we want to leave the bridge that was 75 years old exactly, can I please finish this? Exactly as it was. And then there were other people who were like, I liked the new bridge design, which was, grand in scale. They were a minority, but they liked it. And kind of the community consensus position eventually became a new bridge that looked somewhat like the old one, but not what they proposed. Unfortunately, on this one, it became to soundproof it, they had to renovate it. And some of your concerns about infrastructure are very valid. I wrote them down. I'm going to pose them to the NYPD to get an answer.
It's going to put us underwater, so if you own a home once again, you will lose it because the climate is changing.
We all agree that climate change is happening here.
That's the dire.
Okay, all right. Barbara?
I didn't understand initially of the timing of what this change is going to take place. Did you say that?
Yes, so the change to a different type of program has already taken place in terms of the type of program it is. The other thing is in terms of when they're going to start. They were supposed to start in the fall of 2024. The article I'm passing around will tell you it's going to start now in the fall of 2025. What they're going to do in fall of 2024 is have, I believe, the bid out. It's all in the article I'm sending out, and I'm going to put it on our social media. And again, it's going to go, I sent it to the current.
So they're bidding in 24 and 25.
25 starts construction. And it's supposed to shorten the time of construction to have one firm do all these things. And we will look into the infrastructure as well, but that's where we are with that.
And the plans are developed or not?
They're in the, again, when they change it over, there are some minor changes. The article addressed some of that. We are going to have a Rodman's Neck monitoring committee meeting in the fall as this all gets finalized. Nancy, I'm going to make sure you're there so you can ask the questions you need to ask. And I'm going to ask as many of them as I can in the interim. Did anyone else have a question about Rodman's Neck? Yes.
So it's, who does this Rodman's Neck serve?
It serves the NYPD to help with their shooting
Okay,
requirements.
so can we, like, have them limit that and not have the state police come in?
So when we did the state legislation, no,
Yeah, no.
your questions are very valid, so I want to answer those questions. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah.
One of the requests in the state legislation, and I'll send out a copy with that, is it actually writes in times that they can only, what times they can do it on weekdays, and limiting their weekend use, because right now it's all done by an unenforceable agreement, and we want to definitely rein in those times. And I know, just speaking to people who worship at the temple, sometimes on the high holy days there has been shooting, and that's not respectful, and we want to make it respectful for no matter what your denomination is, but especially for our Jewish friends and neighbors. So we are trying to rein all that in the legislation to come down in the times, and also to do noise level readings as well. And I think the bill will probably pass one of the houses by the end of the year, but it's going to be a push next time around to make it pass both houses and hopefully be signed into law. In the interim, we have the Robins Neck Monitoring Committee meeting. If you have questions, you can email me, and I will get them to the NYPD. We don't have to wait for a meeting to get questions answered. This is being recorded. I also wrote down a lot of what you said. I will take it and I will ask the questions, but do I think we can stop it? Unfortunately, there was an effort to stop it in the 90s, and the community splintered in 400 different directions, including a lot of people who were like, oh, I don't care if it stays, and I don't care if it gets soundproofed. And to me, that's not for the greater good. No, I'm not saying you agree with that, but the problem is the plans seem to be in motion to renovate the range. So what we're trying to do is to make sure that those renovations serve everyone in the community. And if a health study is done, that's really going to be determinative of, is this a threat, is this not a threat? I agree with you, of course, on climate change, and we will try to find out how many trees are being removed, if any.
Well, we didn't do that at Orchard Beach for the new.
I know.
So I just have the feeling it's just going to be, well,
I'm-
300 more trees come along Shore Road to put in.
No, I get it. Nancy, I'm going to email them about the trees tomorrow, and I'll copy you on that communication.
Can I just bring up
Yes.
the issue that I always bring up, and that is noise pollution is a terrible thing, but so is lead pollution.
Yeah.
And I always think they bypass that. A lot of lead gets from those guns in those bullets, and it leaches out into the ocean.
Oh, 100%.
Anybody really follow that?
Well, the other person who agrees with you, your organization, is the Fishermen's Union, because they were part of the original lawsuit, and that's why we've asked for a health study. So I agree with you, and we've got to keep moving on that front as well, and we'll consider some other ways to push that forward. But definitely, reach out to your assembly member, reach out to your state senator, because that bill is still in the assembly, and we want to pass it through both houses. So everyone remembers from Schoolhouse Rock, that's how a bill. That's not how it becomes a law, because then it goes to the governor, she can either veto it or sign it in. But that's what makes things progress here. So, anything else on Rodman's Neck? And then the statement is still going around, so if you haven't gotten it yet, you will get it.
So when is the meeting, the committee meeting?
The committee meeting will be in the fall, once we have kind of a better idea of when their time. Everyone is going to know, I promise. Everyone will know on that.
Everyone will know the number of trees that we have to lose for the infrastructure.
I'm going to ask that.
Well, if they don't.
Okay, Nancy, we gotta move
Are they
forward.
supposed to stop shooting at a certain time?
They are supposed to, and we're trying to get that written into
Last
state
night
statute.
They were wild. They
Okay.
wanted to go out to more
And
Columbus.
I will ask them, no, good point. I will ask them about that. So on the good news front, we did Teacher Appreciation Day on Monday. Teresa Cavity, Jeff Cunningham, and myself were out there. We served all the teachers at PS 175 and the staff and the crossing guard. All got, and with Clipper Coffee, bagels, other goods, coffee, everything else. So this is Teacher Appreciation Week. So for all the teachers in our lives, thank them for the work they do. It's not easy, so please just keep that in mind. And we are lucky here in this community to have a wonderful public school that's right there that I know a lot of people do a lot of great work in. So let's keep investing in them, and let's keep the public school a priority in all of our community requests, because it's really a source of tremendous pride from the neighborhood. And I can tell you the teachers deeply appreciated that we were all out there and paying respect to them. Also in good news, our electronic recycling event, and I want to thank Louisa who came out there and volunteered with me on that day, was a great success. Almost 3,000 pounds of electronics were taken in. And I want to say that probably 90% of that came in the first 20 minutes. In the first 20 minutes we were swarmed, and then it kind of eased up. but it was a tremendous haul, and again, this saves everything from going into landfills or things that are not environmentally friendly. And if you gave in a data device, they sent a certificate certifying that everything was cleared off that device. So I know some people get a little paranoid, they think they've got to wipe their data, and I respect that, but the company we use does do that internally. We pay, just as an organization, we pay $500 to bring them out there. So if people want, they can go to cityonrising.org and make a donation to help further those efforts. The money goes into doing more events like this. Okay, and then we're going to go to the NYC ferry effort, because there's a lot going on there. There's been a lot of press. I didn't realize we'd have so many people, so everyone just bear with me. I'm going to pass this around afterwards. So starting tomorrow, most likely, if not over the weekend, we're going to have social media ads going live online. So, Yes to a City Island Ferry, join the movement. This will bring everybody to our yescityislandferry.com webpage, which has been revamped. City Island Unite, sign up now. Also, some ferry photos. Revitalize City Island small businesses. Join the movement, make a difference today. Cut City Island travel time in half. Say goodbye to long commutes. Support the City Island Ferry and slash travel times to Manhattan. End the gridlock, save our environment with a photo of City Island traffic. Support the City Island Ferry for a greener, smoother commute. Wake up City Hall. City Island deserves better than to be a transit desert. Support the ferry and urge City Hall to take action. Your voice matters. Join 2,000 plus bronze sites. Be a part of a movement for City Island Ferry. Add your name today. So these, I'm going to be passing these around. I'm going to start with you, Barbara, if you can just send it. So these are all going to be going live. So you're going to see these on probably both Facebook as well as probably Instagram as well. It's going to bring you to our website. Our website's been revamped to have a lot of the media stories that have been done, from CBS to NBC to Fox 5 to all the other New York Post. So we're trying to use this and try to build on this momentum. And as both Fox 5 and New York Post brought up, you know, congestion pricing is starting in June. So as people being charged, having more transit options available to people makes sense. Again, what we're trying to do eventually is to get the pier on the end by the City Island restaurants. We've been speaking to the restaurants. So far, we've been getting a very good response. I would also
point out, give parking.
Yeah. Well, so that needs to be worked out. They're open to some of them are open to it, but they don't want to be on the record with that. But they're, again, as the proposal moves forward, that'll be ironed out in greater actuality if they choose to do it. But I would point out at the same time, because a lot of people bring up parking, so it's a valid concern, but I just want to address that. City Island Avenue from Rochelle Street down to the end, no parking either side. Rochelle Street, one side, no parking, one side. Marine Street, no parking. Horton Street, no parking. I'm not sure about Buckley Street. I think one side does, one side doesn't. But the point is that there are many blocks in the surrounding area that already don't have parking. So when people bring up where are people going to park, people aren't parking there right now anyway. And the whole purpose of this is to get people on foot to patronize the storefronts, and to cut our traffic times in half. So that is what we are trying to do right now, while also easing up on some of the summer traffic we get. Because if people can come by ferry, they're going to probably do that. And then finally, as the ads allude to, from an environmental standpoint, one of the most important things we need to do in order to fight climate change, as Nancy brought up earlier, is when possible, it's not ideal for every situation, but when possible, get people out of their cars and get them commuting by different ways in mass transit. And this is one possible way of doing it.
Tons of people bike to the ferry.
That's true too.
Where, I know that it ends here, where does it start?
Well, the Bronx route right now goes to Soundview. Goes to Soundview down by Shore Haven Condominiums. It's down in Soundview. Then it goes to Ferry Point in Ferry Point Park in Throgs Neck. And I want to bring up to everybody, because a lot of people have said, well, why not Orchard Beach? There are issues right now in Throgs Neck because they put the ferry at Ferry Point. The business community doesn't see much of a residual effect from that. That's why they had to pressure Valley's Bally's links into doing the shuttle there. And there are safety concerns at night where it's not a well-lit area. And it's not really accessible unless you have a car, because you have to drive down there. You know, Ferry Point is not very accessible through mass transit. So in a neighborhood of 30,000 people, which is what Frogs Neck is, they're not getting the amount of riders they need to that ferry because it's not accessible to everyone who lives in Frogs Neck. So sometimes when we propose things out here, we are trying to learn from possible mistakes that happen in other communities as well. So good question. It's just taking time.
Where does it go after that?
It goes to the city. Actually,
Where in the city?
it goes to Manhattan. It goes on the east side.
34.
Yeah, 86.
86 on the east side.
And also, and this is a shameless plug. This is a shameless plug, but if you go to yescityonferry.com, the map is actually on that thing. So you can see every site there, and the green is our proposed addition. But yes, it's right there on.
It goes to the city,
That's pretty.
way downtown, and then you can transfer to
Yeah.
other ferries. You go to Brooklyn, or
John,
Yes.
has anybody been there? Have you seen the parking lot at Fair Point? It's always packed. It's almost impossible to get parking.
Yeah.
And even if you're lucky enough to get parking, then you have to wait for the ferry bus, which is always going to be jammed with people.
Yeah.
So in cold weather, you're going to have to walk maybe half of a mile to the ferry. It's not an ideal situation. I mean, I'm criticizing it here, but it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
If you can figure out all of those problems and make it work. But what about the parking? That's the big problem.
That's
Well,
why we
that's
have
what we're trying
Johnny.
to address. But
Johnny's
out here,
reef, if Johnny's reef and Tony's.
No, we're talking about in Frogs Neck now.
oh,
No, we're talking about city.
Well, Frogs Neck, you
If
raise
you
a
have
good
a
point.
point there, you will see that it's the parking.
Yeah, no, I don't know about frogs.
And if
Yeah.
you go there,
And the report,
you have to
the
leave.
report says that. And also on the Ferry Point, so we finally put a deadline for the logo contest. It's June 2nd, so to my artists who are here, and to our artistically inclined people, please, send us your schematics, your drawings for your logo, because we want to have our storefront signs hitting the avenue in the summer season. We've gotten a few great submissions so far. In fact, the person who did the Chambers logo back in the 70s submitted a few designs for this. So we are in some ways doing the story. I'm not saying he's the one who selected, because I don't want to show favoritism, but if you have a good idea for the logo, please let us know. We want to get in a bunch of ideas. We've got some really great ones, but I'm going to leave these over here, because I know I've overloaded everybody with paper today. But if you have good ideas for the logo, we want it. As I said earlier, the web designs are going around. Give them a look. They're going to be live by this weekend. We just filled out some notarized Now, after the whole thing with the Russians in the 2016 election, you've got to send in a notarized paper you are who you say you are to do Facebook ads. So it's taken a little bit, but it's going to go up. And we made some, Canarsie in Brooklyn. There's a group there that's trying to bring the ferry to Canarsie. So we've connected with them. They saw all the press we've gotten, and we're trying to do, apparently there's an area in Queens where they're trying to do the ferry. So we're working on a multi-borough solution here. And on the west side of the Bronx in Highbridge, there's a group that wants to do a ferry on the west side of the Bronx.
Where?
In Highbridge, where Highbridge is.
Where's that?
It's south of Riverdale.
Kingsbridge.
South of Kingsbridge.
Oh, I didn't
So,
know
yeah,
that was
yeah,
anything.
where that little skinny bridge goes.
That's right.
Okay.
The neighborhood. So they have an interest, so we're working. The point is that we're trying to find allies throughout the city, and there's supposedly going to be talk in the end of the year about ferry expansion. So keep your ears to the ground, and again, just ask people, because City Island's a neighborhood of 4,500 people with 9,000 different opinions on everything. When you speak to your neighbors, just ask them to keep an open mind and tell them we're at the initial stages, not the end stages. And these are all conceptual things that will eventually, hopefully, if we're successful, move to fruition. And we have asked for meetings with our elected officials, and we're working on that right now. So we'll be hopefully able to update you with where they all stand, and we'll put that on the website, where they all stand on this very important issue. The co-ed effort, this is kind of just a brief update from last time. Janice Halloran, who lives on the island, she lived in one of the condos. She also runs the emergency room at Jacoby Medical Center. She's been a presenter at our co-ed meetings. So our next co-ed meeting is going to be that hazard vulnerability assessment for City Island. So what are our hazards and how will we address them? Where are our vulnerable populations? How do we service them in an emergency? What do we do if access to the bridge is closed down? So this is going to be our next big event. And then we're going to have another one with Department of Health that's going to be on evacuation of City Island. God forbid that would ever need to happen. So these are the next steps in the COAD. And then we are still in touch with the emergency, the Office of Emergency Management. They're concerned with potential budget cuts. And so they've not yet committed to doing a City Island special cert. But we are trying to do these COAD things, community organizations active in disaster. In the interim, we have partners with FEMA and with Department of Health, and we've had 3 meetings. They're all online. We had a great FEMA presentation on climate change. So you have a chance, go to our YouTube site, go to our Facebook site. It's all up there. It's well worth the time. Particularly the FEMA presentation was outstanding and brought in so many different concerns we've had, particularly in 100 years of sea level rise. I mean, it's really scary stuff. So we have to start preparing for these things, and just encourage everybody to check it out. As people may have seen, the boats have finally been removed by the Parks Department. There's now a new city agency that's doing that. So it's a subsection of the Parks Department, and we're actually working with them as well as some of our elected officials to do some legislation. We want to make it easier that when they find a boat out here, if they can identify the owner, to try to suspend their driver's license, to issue a lien on that boat, which is not easy to do, and potential recycling of those vehicles as well. So we're in discuss with this new agency and the people who head it, and we're looking at other states where they've had great programs in the past and what we can learn from them. New York, from what we believe, is the only city that's ever done this as a municipality. Usually it's done in the state level. But 2 states that have outstanding programs are Florida, 3 states, Florida, Georgia, and Virginia. So we want to eventually work with the city and the state to, and I'll get right to you in 1 second, to get funding to do a buoy system so we can identify all these potential navigational hazards. 2, to try to identify the owners. 3, if the owners won't remove them, how do we get them removed? And then 4, and this is what we've been working on with state legislators, which is a little bit tricky, is everybody knows this, when you pay for your title and your registration of your car, some of that money goes into different programs to further road safety and things like that. We're trying to do something like that when you pay for your boat registration. That money will go into a fund that's a replenishable fund that the state and the city will have access to, so that they can fund the removal of these boats. Because right now it's being funded because the mayor, and I know, and we're gonna go into things we may disagree a little bit with on the funding side with the mayor, but on the positive side, the mayor has given over $1 million to fund all these coastal removal efforts. So now we need to make sure that there's revenue available, both at the city and the state level, to further these programs. And we'll have an update on that. Barbara, go ahead.
Yeah, the Hutchinson River Restoration Project had a cleanup sweep up the Hutchinson River this last Saturday, and there's several, Patrick, I don't know how many boats up at the beginning of the Hutchinson River. So it's not City Island per se, but there's we can identify boats that need to be removed at the...
People are living on those boats.
Well, no, I'm talking about some of the boats that are obviously...
Like Dog City? Yeah.
No, that are been wrecked and are just up on the shoreline.
I know.
So, John, I don't even know who to notify.
Yeah, no, let's talk and let's try to get some coordinates on those things. And that's actually, what you just said is a very, very good point, in the sense of that here we are, and we all like being out here because it's a unique neighborhood and it's very quaint. But these are some unique issues that are posed to our community in the sense of we're right on the outskirts of the city. So sometimes things are on city property, sometimes they're not, particularly when we talk about the entryway of the Hutchinson River. So there needs to be a full state-on solution. And ironically, you wouldn't think
that is city property. It's basically the parks.
Okay. But this is actually a huge issue in Buffalo, the city of Buffalo. They have this issue by Niagara Falls and all this stuff. So there are a lot of different, like we talked about earlier with the ferry, there's a lot of different people who want a similar outcome, and it's how you create a coalition to further that change.
I just want to go back to what I was saying, Bob. The homeless people are living on those boats. It's a very convenient little place to live, you know. And so we want rid of those boats, but then you're going to make those people double homeless. They got nowhere to put their heads down.
Lifeboat Louie. He was out there for many years.
Oh yeah.
Okay, that's the end of the community issues that we had written down. Does anyone have, this is just for community concerns, does anyone else have anything that isn't on this agenda that they'd like to add now? Okay, the only things I got beyond these is I'm aware that there's a problem with backup sewerage at the entryway of the island that people have been complaining about. From what I understand, we did reach out to the owner of the property to make sure they were aware. They said they're going to fix it. We hope they will. If they don't, the city's going to step in. So just, if you hear about it, it's right near Cross Street. We're aware of it, and we are taking steps to address it. Secondly, there's been some people have said there's been some police-related issues by the bridge and the entryways of the bridge, particularly on the Orchard Beach side, that there have been issues. So if you see anything by there, just exercise caution, let me know. But we've been communicating with the 45th Precinct and with the Parks Department. And for years, people have camped out on the far side of the bridge, and some people might consider it a nuisance, but they're out there, they're fishing, they're not really bothering anybody. But if if something happens that escalates, then that might need to be reconsidered. But just if you hear anything, please let me know. While we're here, I gave out flyers. Senator Fernandez is doing a rain barrel distribution event. If anyone's interested, let us know. We may be doing some transport of a few of these, so let's coordinate if we can so we can service the maximum amount of people. We are still working on the, let me just see here. Okay, some of this stuff is an old business. I'm just going to transition to old business. UPK, it's still going. We're working on a two-pronged approach. We're dealing with someone trying to buy some of the private buildings where we've had some issues with. I'm also in touch. We had a conversation. We're going to be arranging something, universal pre-kindergarten. Because we don't have a service here since St. Mary's site closed. I thank you for that, because sometimes I get ahead of myself. So universal pre-kindergarten, it's available in many places in the city. It's not available in City Island. Years ago, we worked to try to get it at St. Mary's. It was a good program, but when St. Mary's, closed that site, it's still needed on the island. The island's having a little bit of a mini baby boom, as we've all seen, because we see all the little ones around, which is a good problem to have. So what we are trying to do is we're trying to get a private owner to buy one of these larger buildings. It's kind of like we were talking about earlier with the parking spots. People are, why can't it be open? There are vacant storefronts everywhere. It needs to be a certain size. I believe it's 50 square foot per child. And we found a vendor to do it, which is Bronx House, which has done this program in many places. So you need 50 feet per child. And we need it for both the 3PK, which are the 3-year-olds, and the UPK, which are the 4-year-olds. Because we got an approval for both programs. So we're looking for a very big space to do both programs. We went to 6, 7 different sites. One point we got down to a maintenance agreement that fell apart. So we're trying to find a private person to buy one of these properties that would be very good for this. At the same time, we've reached out to the city through our elected officials. We are trying to see if the school construction authority might be able to step in and just purchase one of these sites to just cut out the middleman here and work out an agreement with Bronx House. So we are pursuing all sites. I'm not going to ask people to start shouting out sites because we've done that before, and I've reached out to every suggestion that's been given. And sometimes, and I'll use one example. Someone said, what about I think it was Marine Street, I think was the example. I might be off by a little bit. You know where the old Fran's store was, or restaurant was? And I said, okay, and we reached out. And it's had the tinted windows for forever. And there's actually an office in there. And there's a guy, and he's not interested. But, we do reach out. When you give the suggestions, I want you to know, we do reach out. And I know someone asked at the last meeting, and they brought up the catering hall next to Seafood City. And then what was going on with that? Maybe that would be a site. We had someone reach out to them, and they're still considering the catering hall, so they are not considering that site. But the reason I bring this up is that any site you give, we do try to reach out, we do try to further that along.
Let me just say, when you say we, you mean city City Island Rising.
City Island Rising and our board.
Wonderful.
We have some of the board members here. We have Beverly who's here, Dan who's here, Louisa who's here, David was here earlier. He had to run, but we do have some of them here, and we appreciate all of you. And the urgent care, there's really not much new going on there. Shore Road, there's a letter in the current on Shore Road. We've been trying, again, working with the state. Someone gave the suggestion, with all this money coming from the Infrastructure Act and the Inflation Reduction Act and from the Green Bond Initiative, why can't they repair Shore Road? So Shore Road right now, the estimate on Shore Road is $60 million.
Nothing.
A lot of the federal programs require a local match, meaning that the city or the state needs to come up with $30 million, and then the federal government will step in, because to them it is nothing, and match that. The problem is that at the city level, they don't have that money available right now, and the state operates on a 5-year transportation plan. So I spoke to someone in Governor Hochul's office, and they informed me that this is a site for consideration maybe 5 years out, but they're not in the 5-year plan now. So we are trying, and we're speaking to the Breen brothers and all the other activists on this, but I just thought people should be aware the letter and the response is in the Island Current, so it's worth checking out. Dog run, because we see a lot of kids on the island, we see a lot of dogs on the island, so for people and their real babies or their fur babies or whatever. They're still looking for spaces. One space we thought would be good is there's supposed to be a waterfront access area on Bound Street between Seafood City and the catering hall. There's actually supposed to be
Supposed to be by who? What do you mean supposed to be a waterfront?
There's supposed to be
Build-
a waterfront access. There's supposed to be.
on city.
I know.
Waterfront access.
I know, and there's supposed to be a space between Seafood City and the catering hall. And so we've been working with our friends at the Waterfront Alliance, and also, and I bring that up in the context of, for dog run, there's been some concern by some of our neighbors that if you put a dog run in certain spaces on the island, who wants it near their house? The dogs bark. They sometimes leave certain other gifts that not everyone appreciates on the sidewalk and in other places. And so one of the suggestions that was given that seemed a little reasonable is can it be put in a place that's not near anybody, not near the residential portions of the island. And if you put it at that Bound Street, if they had a waterfront area, that would be accessible to everyone on City Island and not be a nuisance to the surrounding area. So that's one of the areas we were considering. So we're in touch with a few different agencies and the elected officials because Senator Fernandez, Assemblymember Benedetto, and the new Councilmember Marmorato have all expressed an interest in trying to get City Island a dog run. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to steer the conversation to a place where there could be a great community consensus to make that happen. There's no updates yet, but we'll keep you posted. New business, as I said last month, we had 2 requests for visitors. One was Open Plans New York, who came and presented. You all heard that. The next up is Valley's Links. Valley's Links took over the old Trump Links in Ferry Point. They're there now, and their goals are that what they would like to do is they want to get a casino license. Now, there's supposed to be 3 downstate casino licenses coming to the area. Their name is in consideration. They're presenting before all the community groups. We may or may not even take a position on it. We have not discussed it internally. But the point is, if someone has to present to the group, we're not here to be the gatekeepers of the community. We'll let them come up. They can present. You can ask them questions. We'll have it all recorded, even if the people can't make it. And if you have questions after that, we'll submit them. But the point is, if every other group is being asked to solicit their opinions, it would be negligence on our part as a board of an organization that's committed to the community benefit of the island to not let you know they've requested to speak and to not let them speak before you. We're not asking anyone to swear on the spot or even ever that they support a casino in Ferry Point. That's not what we're here to do. What we're here to do is to let them present because it's going to have a regional impact on the area and for you guys to give it, collectively as a community, to give an opinion or to raise concerns. So we will be trying to make that happen. One of the folks who's involved in that effort is Stanley Schlein, who is an attorney on the island. He's an island resident. I don't think I'm revealing any sort of confidential information. It's all in published reports. So he asked to speak, and the fact he's, again, a City Island resident, led us more likely to allow that to happen. Also a new business, Because you notice when we send out the emails now, we say, if you want to add something to the agenda, there's a button. We send out, add something to the agenda, and we send out, if you missed the last meeting, you want to watch it to get caught up. So the one request we received was, since we do not have an alternative site parking, perhaps once a month the sweeper can go up the block one side where there are no cars parked to do a sweep. They could determine the schedule. So this, I guess what this person was trying to say is alternate side parking is what they're looking to bring back. I know it's been discussed in the past. I know it's been controversial in the past. I know we're at the end of the meeting and I'm not looking to introduce a hot topic that's going to get people on each other. Does anyone have an opinion or any concerns about alternate side parking? For those who don't know, alternate side parking is when they put up signs, don't park here, likely on the avenue, on this date, at this time, and if you keep your car there, you will get ticketed. That's the draw, that's the con. The plus would be, the streets would be cleaned.
But this person is suggesting once a month, right?
Well, they did, but then they even put down here they could determine the schedule.
Okay, but so that's not every day?
No. And look, there are some neighborhoods, Frog's Neck, where I'm familiar with, they have alternate side parking only 4 or 5 days a week. That might not work for City Island. I understand that. But the point is that we all know how litter attracts on City Island during certain times of the year. And it's not, because people make comments sometimes that are ill-informed, it's not just visitors that are leaving their litter on the avenue. Trust me. There are residents who are also littering on the avenue. Regardless of where it's coming from, the concern is how do we clean it. So we're going to speak to the community board and see better ways of pursuing this, but I want to, yes, go ahead.
I mean, just to use Milford Avenue, where I live, as an example, one side of the street is filthy, it's disgusting. The other side is spick span clean. And the street sweeper come down, it's like a joke, really, to see it. Because he winds around the cars, which are always blocking the side, and he does nothing.
Is that the moat? All the dirt on the moat?
Yeah, that's what I
Which is, the Miniford moat is going to be repaired this year, thanks to Patrick and everyone else for working on it. We are making progress on the little things. Okay, so to be continued there. Meaningful community actions, we're going to keep this limited, and this can be just going forward. If there's something going on in the neighborhood where you all feel that everyone weighing in with a quick note or a quick email to an elected official or to an agency can push positive change, we're going to have ideally no more than 3 things at the bottom of here that everyone can do very quickly in 5 minutes to improve the neighborhood. So we have on here our yescityonferry.com. We also have here the council member started her own survey. Fill them both out and let them know that you would like a ferry or give your opinion. The point is that people are soliciting your opinions and we would like for you to give them. The second is the COAD effort and the CERT effort. So you can sign up right there. It's another bit.ly City Island CERT. These are case sensitives, the bit.ly, so where it's capitalized, use capital letters. Where it's not capitalized, use lowercase letters because they're case sensitive. And then we're going into, it's May, but in June, the city's going to finalize the city budget. So there are no firehouse cuts on the horizon, which would be a big concern for everybody here. And they're actually going to be, I think, doing 2 police academy classes, so they're not cutting the police force, which is usually a concern for people here. But they are planning, they're still slated for cuts on the Parks Department and on the libraries. And if anyone here has seen, we don't have Saturday service in the library anymore. So these are cuts we want to avoid. So there are 2 links on here that you can go to. They're also on our social media handles. One is for the Parks Department. New Yorkers for Parks, and this has been a pledge that they make all the mayoral candidates sign. 1% of the budget should go to the Parks Department, which would be a dramatic increase. So please, if you can, go to this website. You can sign up and send a letter to the mayor and to our council members. We border the largest park in the city of New York. So when there are cuts, that's one of the you're going to see the grass not getting cleaned, the cleanup crews not being out there as much, other things like that. So please make sure that we're funding the Parks Fund. Yes?
So all the money they've already gotten,
Yes.
the trees that came down
I know.
on 95, and the trees that came down from the nice new
Yeah.
headquarters, that's supposed to go to the Parks Department. Where did it go?
We'll look into that. And then the second one here is for the libraries, as we talked about earlier. Please fund that as well. before we close, does anyone have a question, comment, concern that was not raised here? Barbara?
I'd like some follow-up with Rising on Consolidated and the Crane Company
Okay.
on an ongoing way, because, you know, I don't think there's not enough pressure, or we haven't organized
Okay.
enough about, or, I don't know if you know anything about it.
So I know that due to some of the work of some of the other community activists, and I appreciate the work they're doing. The only reason I'm not naming names is because I'll forget someone and then I'll get hate mail. But I appreciate the good work that a lot of people are doing on the cranes. And my understanding is that a lot of the stuff from the crane yard has been moved.
They say that, but I'm
Okay.
not sure that's true.
let's talk
I
about-
see the trucks coming still, and
Although there's considerably less trucks on the avenue, like they
Yeah.
use the fire lane park, and that's having less.
Yes.
I mean,
So
didn't solve the problem,
No.
but it's a minor
well,
problem.
particularly near us. So I'm on the precinct
Right.
council board, and one of the things I ask every meeting, there are a few City Island-based requests. One, our traffic agents when the weather gets nice, because we know that we don't get the traffic agents till school safety breaks down. Two is near the manufacturing areas, which includes the area you're talking about, for them to continue increased enforcement, because there are a lot of people who live down that way, and there are a lot of unique problems with that. And I'm not saying it because I live there, people know where I live, and I'm not saying for a selfish reason, but I prioritize Schofield Street because the school is right there. And God forbid something goes wrong with any of those machines, it's bad news. So I prioritize it, but I do bring up in every one of those communications, go to Reynolds Street, go to the intersection, there's an issue there. So I will bring that up. And then the third thing I always bring up is the daylighting and the lack of enforcement. So those are my three steadies when it comes to City Island.
okay.
Does anyone else have, and we'll talk offline about that, I wrote it down. Does anyone else have anything related to the community that has not been brought up? Thank you all. Meeting closed. Thank you.